I'm Dr. Stelina. I'm from South Asian University. This module is part of International Human Rights Law and the course coordinator is Dr. Srinivas Puram. In this module, the basic discussions will be relating to the interrelationship of environment and human rights. The discussion will also revolve on how the right to environment has been part of human rights doctrine and vice versa, meaning thereby how the human rights doctrine has been part of international environmental law instruments, and further the discussion also will revolve on the challenges of implementing environmental human rights. The protection of environment is a vital part of contemporary human rights doctrine, for it's a sine qua non of numerous human rights such as the right to health and right to life. It is scarcely necessary to elaborate on this, as damage to the environment can impair and undermine all the human rights spoken of in the Universal Declaration and other human rights. This quote by Justice Veeramantri of International Court of Justice very clearly elaborates the interrelationship between environment and human rights and the necessity of protecting environment as a matter of protecting human rights. The need for effective preservation and addressing the varied concerns of environment degradation has been undertaken by the national and international communities through a catena of legal instruments in the form of declarations and treaties. As of now, we have around more than 200 multilateral instruments concerning environmental issues and degradations. But even after that, the environmental degradation has not stopped or slowed down. As a response, we can see a new alternative doctrine is emerging which is based on each individual's right to a clean and quality environment. This fundamental idea presupposes that interrelationship between environmental protection and human rights. Taking this trend forward, international and national system has increasingly used the various guaranteed human right for an effective instrument of environmental protection. So this module basically tries to understand the interlinkages between environment and human rights. The first, we will try to discuss the interrelationship between environment and human rights. The first question is, are environmental issues can come under the treatment of human rights? Yes, to a great extent, the relationship between the protection of human rights and the condition of the environment has been widely recognized in the international instruments. This development is mainly attributed to certain real facts in the form of environmental calamities and disasters and the consequences the world community has witnessed on humanities and their existence. To name a few, Bhopal gas tragedy, Exxon Valdez oil spill, Chernobyl, etc. But there still remains many questions on the precise nature of that relationship. Questions are often raised regarding what exactly is the content of these environmental rights, the mechanism of implementation. More importantly, does international law recognize a right to healthy environment? To answer this aspect, we need to understand the intricate relationship between environmental protection and human rights. Human rights is considered to be the basic inalienable rights each individual possesses, and many believe that it is given by the nature itself. But of late, the international documents and the jurists, they have tried to categorize human rights and put them into categories, divided into basically 3 generational rights comprising the first, second and third generational human rights. The first generation human rights refer to traditional civil and political rights such as freedom of speech, liberties, religion, press, etc. Second generational rights are group rights, and the effective implementation of these rights depends on the affirmative government action. The third generation or the newest addition, their implementation depends on the affirmative actions of individual and also the obligation rests on the state. So the right to healthy environment requires positive and abstaining obligations of the state as well as a behavioral changes on the part of individual. So it clearly shows that there exists an interrelationship between environment and human rights. But to take this interrelationship further forward, various approaches have emerged to implement and characterize the relationship between human rights and environment. The first approach, where the international environmental laws recognize certain human rights which is deemed necessary for the promotion and protection of environment, and that has been made part of environmental instruments. This approach is mainly concerned with acknowledging that certain human rights are relevant to the goal of environmental protection. Here, the trend has been the emphasis is generally been on the procedural rights like right of information, public participation and right to remedy. Second approach is human rights law interprets internationally guaranteed human rights to include an environmental dimensions. The emphasis is primarily on the various substantive rights which are affected by environmental degradation like right to life, health, habitat, property, livelihood, dignity, equality, etc. The third approach, which is the new alternative approach which is beginning and which is still in the evolution, the international environmental law and international human rights law strive to elaborate a new substantive right to a safe and healthy environment. It is this approach which is gaining significance in the contemporary world. Here, the attempt is to formulate a new human right to an environment in its pure nature-centric terms. The next part of the discussion is basically relating to the first approach, that is how far the human rights has been part of international environmental law. If you take this aspect, international environmental initiatives have occurred at an exponential speed since 1960. This happened following the emergence of environmental awareness spearheaded by scientific and civic bodies. Before that, only some modest efforts at the regional and global level, which is characterized by the utilitarian approach and to an extent and a reactionary approach existed. But during the initial time, one of the famous arbitral award in the form of tail smelter took place. This was basically a dispute between United States and Canada, and that actually relating to cross-border air pollution set a precedent in the matter of international law. In fact, this case is considered to be a classic and seminal case which is widely cited as the beginning of international environmental litigations. After the establishment of United Nations, the international awareness and concern for the environment became evident, and this in fact got a boost with the publication of Silent Spring by Rachel Carson. The 1972 United Nations Conference on the Human Environment in the form of Stockholm Conference and subsequent establishment of United Nations Environmental Programme are considered to be the beginning of contemporary international environmental law. The momentum created by the Stockholm Declaration, the attention for environmental issues and the commitment to taking normative action has led to the adoption of numerous legal instruments dealing with specific aspects of environmental protection. A survey of the many multilateral and regional instruments reveals incorporation of certain human rights principles as elaborated in the first approach. The first significant international event where the connection between human rights and environmental protection was formulated by the Stockholm Declaration. Principle 1 of Stockholm Declaration is generally believed to incorporate concerns of human rights. The principle reads, "Man has the fundamental right to freedom, equality, and adequate conditions of life in an environment of a quality that permits a life of dignity and well-being. And he bears a solemn responsibility to protect and improve the environment for present as well as future generation." This approach asserts that environmental protection is an essential precondition for effective universal enjoyment of internationally guaranteed human rights. A decade after the Stockholm Conference, the World Commission on Environment and Development report, Our Common Future, recognized the connection between environment and human rights. But in 1992, the UN Conference on Environment and Development failed to expand further the connection between environment and human rights. Many believe there is a backward step regarding the environmental and human rights relationship happened in that conference. While a number of states supported the inclusion of a right to environment in the conference declaration, there was no unanimity. The final document does not therefore contain a clear statement on a right to environment. Instead, Principle 1 of the Rio Declaration clearly shows the anthropocentric approach. It states, human beings are at the center of concerns for sustainable development. They are entitled to a healthy and productive life in harmony with the nature. The World Summit on Sustainable Development shows clearly the respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms are essential for achieving sustainable development. The plan stresses the importance of inaction at the national level and also at the international level. Though the final text adopted at the UNCD does not contain a right to environment, and there is almost no discussion on the interrelationship of human rights and environment has taken place. this text does contain some reference to environmental protection. Principle 10 of the Rio Declaration made a significant impact. This principle declares that environmental issues are at best handled with participation of all concerned citizens at the relevant level. The first principle guarantees to the people the right of information on all components of environment. The second principle requires the public participation in decision making. By virtue of the third, states have to guarantee access to an effective judicial or administrative review procedure to persons covered by environmental matters. A number of subsequent environmental instruments adopted incorporated the procedural safeguards in the form of access to information and participation. The Aarhus Convention is the most significant international environmental agreement protecting procedural human rights. The preamble declares the right of everyone to live in an environment of adequate quality, and further articles provides right of information, public participation and access to justice. The African Commission on Human Rights and Peoples found that the failure to conduct an environmental impact assessment contributed to a violation of the right to property. Thus, there have been some developments at the international environmental level to use procedural human rights documents for the protection of affected individuals. The next part of the discussions relating to how far the environmental protection is a concern of human rights regime. If we take the modern human rights regime, it's founded on international law. It traces back to an extent it is majorly based upon the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948, which was adopted in 1948, and this human rights doctrine enshrined in the UDHR have been further articulated in subsequent human rights treaties, including the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and International Covenant on Economical, Social and Cultural Rights. A specific right to an environment has not been clearly envisaged in any of these conventions. Nevertheless, growing environmental caseload of human rights institutions and courts indicate a trend towards greening of international human rights law. This trend has been done in two ways. Firstly, civil, political and economical rights like right to life, health, adequate standard of living, association, all has been interpreted to having a environmental implications, and that has been invoked to protect environmental goals. These rights have been given an interpretive integration to include environmental issues under their ambit. Secondly, human rights institutions have eloquently indicated the intricate relationship between environment and human rights. The following section describes the various human rights that have been utilized to integrate environmental dimension. If you take this dimension, environmental protection human rights converges at the right to life. The right to life recognized in the relevant international instruments is the source and serve as the basis of all human rights. It was held a quality of human life exists only in an appropriate environment. The right to life, which is both an individual and a collective right at political, communities and at the social level, cannot be guaranteed in the absence of a right to health and ecologically balanced environment. Right to life has been expandingly interpreted by human rights bodies to include a healthy environment. Another right is right to health is another right which is interpreted in the context of environment in the International Covenant on Economical and Social Rights as well as even other international covenants. At the regional level, Article 24 of African Charter on Human Rights states that all people shall have the right to great satisfactory environment favorable to their development. Human rights institutions, if you look at that, has eloquently elaborated on the close relationship between environment and human rights. And what is the important among them stands is the Declaration of 1994 Draft Declaration of Principles on Human Rights and Environment. This represents an early example of an international test addressing comprehensively the linkage between human rights and the environment. The draft declaration says that states and all other parties shall avoid using the environment as a means of war, which will have a significant long-term widespread harm on the environment. The 1994 final report to the United Nations Subcommission on Prevention of Discrimination and Protection of Minorities, the Special Rapporteur on Human Rights and the Environment endorsed this that compliance with the international humanitarian law as an important mechanism for the protection of human rights and the environment. In March 2012, the Human Rights Council decided to establish a mandate on human rights and environment. which will, among other tasks, study the human rights obligations relating to the enjoyment of a safe, clean and healthy environment. In addition to the work of human rights bodies and special procedures, the jurisprudence of universal and regional human rights supervisory mechanism has tackled the environmental dimensions. In the case of Social and Economic Rights Action Center case versus Nigeria, the state-owned Nigerian National Company and the Shell Petroleum Company had been exploiting oil reserves. Toxic wastes were deposited into the local environment. The issue before the African Commission was whether the military government of Nigeria was guilty of violations of right to health and environment. This case has been decided positively for the protection of environment. Further, neither the European Convention nor the European Charter does not expressly guarantee a right to environment. However, the Convention and the Charter indirectly offer a certain degree of protection. In various cases, this has been demonstrated. In the case of Borders versus Temaraho versus France, it was alleged that foreseen nuclear testing would violate the applicant's right to life and family. In case of Lopez versus Spain, the court held that Article 8 of the European Charter of Human Rights has been violated because the applicant had not been indemnified by the state for the damage resulting from environmental pollution. In the inter-American system, the first environmental case was brought on behalf of Yanomami Indians of Brazil. In that case, the Commission concluded that the ecological destruction of the Yanomami lands in Brazil had caused violations of right to life, health and food under the African Declaration of Rights and Duties to Man. The Commission devoted particular attention to environmental rights in reports of Ecuador and Brazil. So these documents definitely shows that there has been a growing acceptance of environmental aspects into the human rights doctrine. Further, International Court of Justice has also addressed the issue of environment and stated that environment is not an abstraction, but represents the living space, the quality of life and the very health of human beings, including generations unborn. The existence of the general obligation of the states to ensure that activities within their jurisdiction and control respect the environment of other states or of areas beyond national control is now part of the corpus of international law relating to environment. Similar views has been expressed by Justice Veeramantri in the Gapchikova-Nagamara's case, where he drew a strong connection between enjoyment of human rights and the quality of environment, where he said the protection of environment is a vital part of contemporary human rights doctrine, for it is a sine qua non for numerous human rights such as the right to life and right to life itself. Further, numerous constitutions of the nations of the world guarantees a right to clean and healthy environment or a related right. If you take South Africa's constitution guarantees everyone the right to an environment that is not harmful to the health or well-being. South Korea's constitution contains provisions recognizing that all citizens have the right to a healthy and pleasant environment. In India, the right to clean environment has been expressly recognized as a constitutional right through the wide interpretation of right to life under Article 21. Further, the Constitution Amendment explicitly incorporated environmental protection and improvement as a part of state policy. In Pakistan, the right to life is guaranteed by Article 9, and the Supreme Court in Snehla Sia's case decided that the right to life includes the right to live in an unpolluted environment. This human rights doctrine at the international level, regional level, and at the national constitutional level shows the evergreening trend of human rights law to incorporate and include environmental aspects into the human rights dimension. But this is falls definitely short of the third approach, that's the latest approach which is developing, that is the question that whether there exists a right to healthy environment independently as a human rights. So that is the third part of our discussion, that whether there exists a new human right to a healthy environment. If one analyzes the logical corollary of the above two based approaches, that is the procedural rights and environmental paradigm and the greening of human rights law, the pronouncement of the new human right to a healthy environment is the end. In other words, it should be the logical conclusion. But, however, though the relationship between the protection of human rights and the condition of the environment has been widely recognized in the international system, the human right to a clean environment has not been explicitly pronounced. Basically, if you analyze this issue, the scholars are divided on the topic. Professor Ramcharan argues that implicit in the right to life is a right to environment and concomitant obligation in states to take effective measures to prevent and to safeguard against the occurrence of environmental hazards which threaten the lives of human beings. Whereas Professor John Lee details the possibility that a right to environment may have already emerged at the regional context, especially in the African context. It may be only a matter of time that this same get acceptance at the international level and at the multilateral level. According to Shelton, at the present time, it is unlikely that international conventions at a global level will explicitly recognize and accept this right because states definitely fear the corresponding obligations and duties attached when there is a declaration or then there is a pronouncement of right to environment as a human rights at the explicit substantive level. Palmer suggests that variations in national and international practice in relation to human rights and the environment and the evidence of unwillingness on the part of states to accept a right to environment make it difficult to claim it as a customary international environmental law. Further, the discourse will depend to a great extent on the very definition and interpretation of law itself. If one relies on the traditional approach of law, consisting of declarations, consisting of treaties and binding documents, then we cannot treat such a right to exist under the human rights. But if one understands the very nature of international law, specifically the human rights law and environmental law, which is mostly consisting of soft law declarations, then we can perhaps very positively read such a right to the existing environment and human rights paradigm. International environmental law is characterized by a plethora of soft law declarations. Many of these soft law declarations refer to a right of environment. At the regional level, the African and Inter-American conventions contain a right to environment in a limited term. Various state jurisdictions have recognized a clear right to environment of certain quality. Thus, at present, a third-based approach is mainly visible in the regional, international treaties and at the national level, not at the international level. At the international level, an explicit provisions which recognize the right of environment is clearly missing. Why should environmental protection be treated as a human rights? One of the oft-repeated criticism of international environmental law is its inefficiency. It has been often cited that international environmental law has failed to protect or slow down the environmental degradations. So it is in this context, this particular new approach which is emerging, which gains significance. The Declaration of Environment as a Human Rights must serve to secure a higher standards of environmental quality. A human rights mechanism would enhance the prospects of protecting environment because it would help the international community see it from the perspective of the most vulnerable and most affected individual, not from the point of view of states or from the developed states and developing nations view. That is what in fact today the international environmental diplomacy is always characterized by the conflict between developed nations and developing nations. But a human right approach will definitely see the environmental issues from the angle of the most repressed, most vulnerable and most affected person of the world. Why should environmental protection be treated as a human rights issue? This is a most intriguing and confronting question for the international community. Definitely there are certain viewpoints which argues for the support of elevation of environmental rights as a human rights, and there are also equally arguments against the elevation of environment as a human rights doctrine. What are the points which supports the argument that we need to elevate environment to the level of a declared explicit human rights? Most obviously, and in contrast to the rest of international environmental law, a human rights perspective directly addresses environmental impacts on life, health, and other aspects of life, rather than on the traditional international environmental law which emphasize the obligation of the states and of the environment in general. In fact, if you look at the history of international environmental law, this has been often repeated, and in fact all negotiations and in a lot of literature, that international environmental law has to an extent failed to slow down the environmental degradations. This is in spite of the fact that we have a multitude of international instruments, in fact more than 200 multilateral instruments which is relating to the global issues. So one of the reason is that we look at environmental issues from the point of view of states, that's the developing nations point of view and developed nations point of view. And in this process, one of the basic fact which is neglected is the right of people, the people who can be affected, and that is where a human rights doctrine or a dimension come into the help. In fact, a human rights mechanism would enhance the prospects of protecting the environment. The basic reason being, it helped the international community see the environmental issues and concerns from the perspective of the most affected people, most vulnerable and most unheard, most poorest regions of the world. In the absence of a well-developed implementation bodies for environmental law, elevating the environmental issues to the right of a clean environment to a guaranteed human rights will definitely increase the efficacy of both environmental as well as the human rights law. Further, the benefits of such a declaration or an elevation of the right of environment to the level of human rights include added constitutional and moral weightage of rights, stronger enforcement mechanism, and also the understanding that environmental law is not just about states, it's not just about developed nations, it's not about obligation of developing nations, it's about individuals, the most affected and the most vulnerable sections. But at the same time, elevation or declaration of a right of environment to the level of human rights is different, but this is not a panacea. There are inherent difficulties attached with the implementation and even elevation at the normative level itself. What are the difficulties? Difficulties of adopting a human rights approach include the emphasis on anthropocentric approach, because in the human rights doctrine, we are emphasizing again the human beings as the center of right. Basically, we are proclaiming that right of environment exists for the protection of human rights. So, we are again not giving the importance to environment per se as such, but we are again giving the emphasis to the human beings. That is at the center, we think that that is at the center of the human rights paradigm. So, this anthropocentric approach, which can be a negative point for elevating the right of environment to the level of a human rights. But from a legal and philosophical point of view, environmental issues from the perspective of human rights approach will help to see the environmental issues not merely from the perspective of states, but from the side of individuals. Most importantly, human rights, it forms a central part of our thought system. In fact, it forms a central part of the thought process, the discourse of many people of the world. In fact, all parts of the people of the world, no part being an exception. Rights in the legal system may incorporate certain rights and obligations, but in the thought process, that does not by itself change a government policy, but what it changes is the embedding of rights in our thought system. A human rights can definitely affect the thought process, the way the states, institutions and individuals operate and react. And the last protection may be that if you notice that the developments of the human rights law for the past so many decades, in fact, the scope of human rights and the subject of human rights doctrine has been grown, and now that does not include just the states but also individuals. So, elevating this environmental rights to the level of human rights will take into account the role of MNCs and the private individuals in their role in violation of the environmental rights, because the reason is that the scope of and the subject of human rights law has widened to include not just states but also to private corporations as well as individuals. The connection between environmental protection and human rights has been the topic of discussion from the 1970s. This has been mainly due to the actual impact of environmental disasters and degradation on the enjoyment of human rights. The acknowledged links have attempted to bridge and establish a right-based approach to environmental protection. This right-based is characterized by incorporating procedural aspect of human rights to environmental protection, increased greening of human rights law, and the ongoing debate of formulating a new and substantive human rights to a healthy environment. Despite this gradual acceptance and increased use of human rights mechanism to protect environmental human rights, treaties still fall short of guaranteeing a right to a decent or satisfactory environment and incorporate them in the guaranteed human rights catalogue. At the same time, the encouraging signs are seen in the recognition of the right to a healthy environment in the Constitution, legislation, and other national policy of various state jurisdictions. As said earlier, there are inherent advantages for looking at environment protection from a human rights perspective. But as of now, international community appears to be reluctant to accept and formulate a new right to environment. In this background, the existing human rights mechanism can be used to increase the availability of avenues open to environmentally affected victims. The UN Commission on Human Rights can explore the creation of a procedure for human rights complaints that relate to environment issues. Environmental degradation has actually created a lot of refugees. If you look at the present Refugee Convention, it adopts a restrictive definition and consequently limits the definition of refugees. The requirement of refugees under Article 1A requires that there must be a well-founded fear of being prosecuted, and second, the reason for prosecutions should be limited to race, religion, nationality. There is no obvious reference to environment. The United Nations Commission for Refugees could recognize and explicitly provide protection for persons displaced in the result of environmental destruction. In fact, the UN Refugee Agency has already recognized the increasing number of people displaced by environmental change. By the end of this module, I'm sure that you have acquired a familiarity with the interrelationship between environment and human rights. We have also understood the significance of relating environment to the protection of human rights, and we have also seen where does the international law stands in the protection of environment and also to which level it has reached elevating environment to the protection of human rights. And as we understood that, till now what the international environmental law and human rights doctrine stands today, the treaties have fallen short of declaring environmental rights as a substantive rights on its own. Thank you for the attention.